Hey everyone, welcome to Taste the Globe. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make flour tortillas. Now tortillas in general are freaking amazing. I love them, maybe because I'm Mexican, I don't know. I like to think that anybody in general who really enjoys food can appreciate the versatility. Flour tortillas specifically are really good for things like burritos, certain type of tacos like al pastor. I really love using them for quesadillas. I think they're amazing like that. If you're one of the fortunate people who lives next to a tortilla, you're set because they have legit tortillas. But for the rest of us, you go to the store and the ones they have there are really crap quality. They're garbage. And since these tortillas are so easy to make, it really is a no-brainer. You should just make them from scratch. So let's go ahead and gather up all our ingredients and let's get started.
Let's begin by adding some salt to our all-purpose flour that we have set aside in a bowl here. And we're going to whisk this together just so it's nice and mixed up before we start to mix in any of our wet ingredients. Next, we're going to be adding our baking powder. The baking powder is going to allow our tortillas to be nice and fluffy. Otherwise, they would become too hard and rigid when we're cooking them, and we wouldn't be able to use them for things like tacos. They'd be a little bit closer to a tostada. Once that baking powder has been added, just like the salt, we're going to mix it up before we add any of our wet ingredients. The biggest reason we do this is anytime you add any wet ingredients, it's going to make things clump up, and if that's not evenly distributed prior to that, then you're going to have inconsistent tortillas. You can play around with the type of oil that you use. I like to use a mix of grapeseed oil with a little bit of bacon fat for some extra flavor. The best tasting tortillas always incorporate some kind of animal fat. In Mexico, this is typically lard. Now let's go ahead and add our water a little bit at a time. And once that dough starts to come together in rough crumbs, we could go ahead and dispense with the electric mixer and start doing the rest by hand. I'm going to continue the kneading process within this bowl until all those little flecks of dried flour are incorporated and my dough starts to come together a little bit better. After a couple of minutes, you'll feel the dough start to come together a little bit more. It'll be nice and pliable. Once this is done, we are ready to start working our dough on the surface of our table. We begin by flouring our table to make sure that our dough doesn't stick when we're working with it. Now at this point of the kneading process, you're just kneading it for approximately 1 to 2 minutes, and it should start to come together where you can see just like that, it's nice and elasticy. Then you're ready to shape your dough. Shaping your dough like a log makes it much easier to cut equal sized pieces, ensuring that your tortillas will all be the same size. Once you shaped it, we take a pastry cutter and cut it in half, then in quarters, and then in eighths. For our next step, we're going to take each of these individual pieces and we're going to pat them into little discs. The reason we do this is we're going to eventually roll these tortillas out, and doing this beforehand makes it a lot easier when we get to that step. Once we have all our pieces shaped into discs, we're going to put them on our floured surface, and the next step is going to be covering them with a towel. Covering the dough with a towel and allowing it to rest is going to allow the dough to relax and become much more pliable, and it's going to make it possible to roll it out much easier. Let it rest for a minimum of 30 minutes and a maximum of 2 hours. When you begin rolling out your first tortilla, if you find it very resistant, that means you need to let the dough rest a little bit longer. Make sure to keep flipping over your tortilla during the rolling process. The thinner it gets, the more likely it is to stick. When your tortilla is thin enough that you can see your hand through it, we're ready to get it cooking. Now we're going to be using a regular 9-inch diameter pan to be warming up our tortillas. And kind of similar to pancakes, when you start seeing all these bubbles rising through the top, that's when it's time to turn it over. You essentially want your tortilla to be a little bit brown, but you want those bubbles to rise and a little bit of steam to be created within the dough to make sure that it's cooked all the way through. Your finished product will be a very pliable and fluffy tortilla. You can eat them fresh or reheat them to enjoy them in a quesadilla or as a taco.
I really hope you enjoyed my video. Please make sure to like and leave me comments. And if you like trying new foods from around the world, please make sure to subscribe. If you don't, broaden your horizons and make sure to subscribe anyways. Thanks for watching, everybody.